that one is this.
Oh, try this one.
No.
There's nothing in it, I promise you. There's nothing bad in it.
There's nothing living in it.
Oh, look what's in it. Oh, look. Try please.
What? No, this one's what's this is snake skin. Snake skin.
Oh, this is snake skin.
Shredded snake skin.
Oh my god.
Hello. I just said hello. Hello? Hello? Hello?
Let somebody say it once.
Hello?
Hello?
Hello? Let's say it all together one time. Maybe 3, 2, 1.
Hello?
Hello? Not like responding.
Zoom it.
Oh man, that's new. Hardly ever.
You can see there's loads of different ones behind us here. The reason we've got lots of different animals is so that we don't get the same animal out every time. So we'll show 3 different animals each session, but we've got things like snakes, tarantulas, geckos, frogs, cockroaches, stick insects, all sorts of things. But we're going to start by showing you one of our snakes. Now, if you've seen our snakes in the main area, some of them are quite big, especially Eric, the big Burmese python we've got. Now, the snakes in here are nowhere near that sort of size. They're all pretty much fully grown, and the size they are, they're classed as small snakes. So the ones in here are much easier, being lighter, they're easier to hold, and being smaller as well, we know that they're not going to attack us and want us for dinner or anything like that. Okay? Hopefully. I'm joking. So we're going to start by showing you one of our corn snakes. Now, we've got 4 corn snakes in this enclosure. Corn snakes are very popular as pet snakes these days. You often see them in captivity, just because they're a nice size, they've got a good temperament, they're always really friendly, especially the more you hold them as well. So we're going to show you Sprite. I think Sprite is hiding under the water. He usually is. Yes. Thought as much. Now, those of you that can see in this enclosure, you might see that each of the 4 corn snakes is a completely different colour. Now, these snakes come from North America in the wild, so that's not where you get any rainforest. They're not a rainforest snake, but they're actually found in places like cornfields, which is why they're called corn snakes. And the natural colour, for those of you in front, you might see there's one like a dark browny red colour. That's the normal colour of a corn snake. But because they're kept in captivity a lot, snake breeders will breed them all sorts of colours just out of interest because they look really pretty. So Sprite is a fairly dark colour, but he's not a wild colour. So he would stand out a little bit in the wild, which wouldn't be great. He would probably stand out quickly to predators and get eaten as a meal. Whereas the natural one would hide and camouflage really well. And the other 2 we've got in here are bright orange, and the other one's pretty much white, so they'd stick out like a sore thumb as well. But anyway, I shall start bringing Sprite round. Well, Jennifer will bring him round for you to hold if you want, and I'll tell you all about him. And the best way to hold him is, like I've got my hands, nice and relaxed, nice and flat. Just keep them nice and flat, and he'll wriggle around a little bit. He might hold on to you, wrap around your fingers and hands and things, but he's not going to squeeze and he's not going to hurt you. He's just holding on for his own safety. Or if you just want to stroke him, if you stroke in the middle of his body, not too near his head, because we're quite big and scary compared to him. He's much smaller. Or those of you, probably best with the children, if you do want him around your neck, you can put him around your neck. He's a fairly small snake to do that with, but I'll leave it up to you. If you want to sit him on your shoulders, you can do. So if you're happy to pass it around, we'll start at one end and come around everyone. Now, you will notice he'll stick his tongue out quite a lot. He's not being cheeky, he is doing something quite important. Anybody know what he might be doing with his tongue? What do you think? That's right, it's like his nose, he's smelling with his tongue. So he's like tasting the air. We'll have loads of smells on us that we can't smell, but he'll be able to. So he's just trying to figure out who we are, what we're doing. Now, what do you think Sprite would eat for his dinner? Or what do you think we feed him here at Amazonia? Anyone know? What would he catch out in the wild? Bigger than something bigger? Yeah, rats and mice. For his size, we give him 1 or 2 large mice, just once a week. Every Thursday he gets fed. It'd be quite good if we did that, just have one meal a week. So he is a constrictor. All the snakes we've got are constrictors, which means he'll bite onto the mouse and wrap around, like squeezing, like strangling it to kill it. And then once he knows it's dead, although the ones we give him are already dead, but in the wild, once it's dead, he'll then carry on eating it, get it in his mouth, all in one big piece. So for a mouse, often about that big that we give him, it will fit in his, what looks like a tiny little head and mouth. It'll fit there, in there, all in one big go, because he can stretch open his mouth and get the food in there, all in one go. For those of you waiting or already seen him, I'll show you these other bits to do with the snakes. A lot of people don't realise snakes have got any bones in their body, but they've got about 500. So this is a skeleton that shows you what it would look like, which is why I say keep nice and relaxed, just so you don't squeeze any of his bones. The little ribs that go all the way down his body are really delicate. And in between all his bones are all his muscles. So although he hasn't got any legs, he can move really well. And I'll also pass this round. Yeah, about every 2 or 3 months our snakes shed their skin, which basically means they'll wriggle out their skin in one long piece. You'll see a big one on the wall behind us there. And anybody tell me why they do that? Why would a snake wriggle out of its skin?
Can you watch it?
As they grow bigger. So we lose bits of skin all the time. It's what makes up a lot of dust in our houses. But we don't wriggle right out of it overnight. That would be a shame. Whereas some animals like the snakes do. So this would have come off as one long piece.
I'm going to be the first. You're all right.
I'm not sure what the going rate is now. I think it's about... But saying that,
You get
you can see on this bit where his eyes are. Because the sprite doesn't have any eyelids, so you can't shut his eyes. You don't know when he's sleeping. Instead, he's just got skin over them, so he's often shuts his skin as well. They can be a bit delicate sometimes, those bits, if he catches them badly. That's what it's like inside his body. Similar. I would what, sorry?
Like the mouse going
I know, it's hard to, like, their jaw kind of dislocates, so whereas we can open up our mouth and then we have to stop, we can't continue. The snakes can open it and then it kind of opens again, so it's hard to believe. Even when you watch them, it's hard to see, like, the scales just completely stretch really wide as well. And just, yeah. Some, like, have you seen Eric, the big Burmese python? Well, we feed him rats, he gets fed every Sunday. But in the wild, they'd be going after things like lambs, pigs, sheep, you know, really big things. So imagine him eating one of them, but he'd be able to. And it would take him a long time to get something that big into his mouth. And whilst they do it, like their airways, the way that they eat, they can still breathe and kind of just sit there taking it in slowly, and it's quite clever. Bit weird. Yeah. Just like a whitish grey colour, and it'll be soft at first, but when it hardens, it's just like chalky. It just kind of breaks in your hand. Yeah, so then, and you'll see sometimes it looks a bit fluffy, which is probably just because the mouse and rat's been fluffy. But saying that, they're pretty clean animals because they only eat once a week. They only poo once a week. Quite clean. A little ways to go. But otherwise, looking at a snake, it's pretty much impossible just to guess. Some species people can try and have a guess, but it's hard. So has anyone got any other questions about the snake? Huh? Yeah? Like it's dotted, like this. That's just what his scales are like. On the top of his scales, if you look at the skin, the top's all these dots, and that's just how the scales are. But underneath, you've got all the lines, and they act a bit like a grip. Now, for example, if Jennifer had a watch or a bracelet on, and he wrapped around it, we couldn't just pull him off really quickly, because he might hold on with his scales, and if you pull one of those underneath scales backwards, it's like us pulling a fingernail off. It'd be really painful for him. It's like one chunk of a scale. So you've got to, although he's quite a tough creature, you've got to be quite careful as you move him around and things. But that's just how they look on the top. All snakes just have that dotty looking scale. Okay, we'll show you Chub. She's called Chub because of her size. You'll see why. And she's called a white tree frog. Now she's not white. She'll be quite a dark brown colour when I bring her out. Now she is a frog, so she can jump, but because of her size, she tends to be quite a lazy frog and sits there. Digit is about a third of her size, and because of that, he's a little bit more hoppy and does like to jump around off people's hands. But this is Chub, and she's quite different to frogs we'd find like in our gardens in this country, because she's a tree frog, which means she lives all her life right at the top of a really, really tall rainforest tree. And she can do this because when you have a look at her feet, like her toes, she's got like big circles. These are called her toe pads, like little suctions. So they're really sticky. She can hold on to things like the tree trunks and climb really well. And she's got nice strong back legs for climbing and jumping too. So she's got these sticky toe pads, and right at the top of a tree, can anybody tell me where would she find a pool of water? Because she's a frog, she's got to keep nice and wet and lay her eggs in the water. But where might she find a pool of water? You know? That's right, in the leaves. In the rainforest, there's lots of plants that attach themselves to trees called bromeliads, and they grow a bit like a cup. All the leaves like make a cup shape. So when it rains, all the rain collects and makes little pools of water. So that's where animals like the frogs could swim around, lay their eggs, and keep nice and wet. So it does sound a bit bizarre to think of a frog living up a tree, but that's what they do in the rainforest. Okay? So if we bring this one round, if you do want to hold Chub, we'll just spray your hands with water, just to keep your hands nice and fresh. And the best thing to do is just keep both your hands there nice and flat. She'll sit on your hands and feel a bit like jelly, really. The only thing that we can't do is really stroke her back, because if lots of people stroke her back, it can damage her skin, because she's got quite thin, delicate skin. So if you do want to feel, just have your hands out ready, and happy to take this one? Yeah, sure. That brown colour, they're really well camouflaged in these frogs all the time, so she's always blending in with everything around her. So in her enclosure it's quite dark, so she's always blending in with the bark in there, the sides, which is out brown. As she's out in the light, you'll probably see mainly on her legs to start with. It slowly starts to change to be much brighter green. And basically in the rainforest she'd go from browns to greens all the time, depending what she's sat against, so she's hiding. How quick? As she goes around here, which will only be 5-10 minutes, you'll start to see a change. But not only start to see, so a complete body could be a couple of hours. I think it just depends on the contrast, you know. Yeah, we used to have a white tree frog that was like bright, like Jennifer's hair actually, that sort of colour, really turquoisey green, and it never went brown. But then it was in a much lighter colour. It could have changed if it wanted to. No, it doesn't. I think it's like jelly in the plastic bag. Maybe when she gets to the